Okay. And okay. So I'm now recording you. To start, will you please state your name?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Song Gao.
And will you tell me a bit about your professional background?
So my background is in the Department of Geography and more specialty in Geography Information Science, so GIS. I'm doing research on GI science.
Okay. And have you always been in geography, in the GIS, or have you had other professional experience?
I'm only in the geography and GIS. Yeah.
Okay. Has your professional experience been within academic institutions, or have you also worked with other non-academic institutions?
For my profession, in the summer, I usually, when I was a student, not anymore. So when I was a student, I also working in the industry. So, yeah, in those second tech companies.
Okay. When did you get involved in research on disasters? And how did you get involved?
Yeah, so the first type of disaster kind of research was actually from last year when I joined one NSF funded project about the coastal and people for the disaster response. So that's the first type of disaster. And then this year, I don't know whether people will, call the pandemic as disaster. So, depending on the definition. But I really think this is also disruptive events. So, I'm also, I got another NSF grant to do the COVID-19 research. So this is the two projects I think kind of involved with disaster or disruptive events.
Mm-hmm. For the NSF project that you started last year, how did you get involved in that project, having not done work in that area before?
It's a collaboration project, so definitely it's collaborative efforts. So in my team, there are other people who have been doing the disaster-specific research for many years. Yeah, but my expertise in geospatial data processing and the modeling aspect can add something to the team.
And what was the particular event that you were focusing on for that project?
For that project, we focused on the hurricane specifically. So we utilize different types of sensors, both the physical sensors and also from satellite imageries, but also social sensors such as from social media posts and other community responses. And by fusing different types of data, we are able to first of all understand the damages to the physical infrastructure. On the other hand, we can also understand the community's responses, especially their perception, their expressions, before, during, and after the events, and target at the users in those infected areas.
Okay. And which geographic locations were you working in?
We have a team member in Texas, so in the Great Houston area.
Okay.
Yeah, so we definitely first look at the Harvey first. because Harvard has a lot of data available.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. So would you say that you specialize in a particular type of disaster research?
No.
No.
So yeah, I feel my expertise is more like provide more methodologies and also like data fusion, data-driven approaches rather than just a target at a specific event. Because we talked about this actually with other colleagues before. So this kind of framework can also be applied to such as wildfire or other kind of events or disasters. But definitely need some modifications.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because different characteristics of the disaster and also the resilience for the communities.
Okay. So you're bringing up a lot of great points that I'm going to be probing in the different questions. So
Okay.
So I've just been taking some notes. Is there one seminal disaster event for you that really shaped your thinking about disaster research?
So not necessary to be the disaster I'm investigating, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think this is a interesting question because first of all, I think to answer this question is that definitely the disaster is closer to myself or to my friends or the people who I know, or maybe I was living there. So I think the geography definitely is one aspect to answer this question. So this is why for me, I think like a Thomas fire in California is definitely, I think, something that's because the closeness to where I live before. So I think that's definitely because we know all those, because we kind of, our friends or people I know, experiencing this. And for us, we can also look at all those, updates and news reports and latest situation from the news media, from like the data sources we have, like satellite imageries or other analysis reports. So I feel this is really something that's I think maybe shocked me, and also because there is a follow-up. I forgot the name, but there is another one last year. It's still in the same area because it burned a lot of houses and also I think definitely lives, lots of lives. So I think that's definitely a bad thing. I think because it's a huge damage. That's why I feel it's definitely something that's hit me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The next question is, what was the focus of your research before COVID-19?
Before COVID-19, my research it's called place-based social sensing. So the idea is that first of all, compare with like a physical sensing. Like, researchers use satellite imageries or other physical sensors to understand the surface of the Earth. We focus more on the socio-economic, environment of the society. So using those individual-based sensors and, from large scale, different types of sensors. We talk about like social media, or I also mainly use like the mobile phone data and other more sources generated by human. So this one is more like human sensors, not those physical sensors, even including those like smart devices. So all human sensors.
So was this part of a particular project?
It's not a particular project. It's more like I would call it like some conceptual framework, because people has done a lot of great things about observing, monitoring, and understanding the Earth's surface and processes. But in geography, particularly, there is also traditional study about human geography, but more in the qualitative way. So my research, because my background is more in the quantitative methods, so it kind of we still study of the human side of geography, but we hope to mix of both quantitative and qualitative methods in the study of this kind of social environment. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's really neat. So how has
hopefully I explained it.
No, this is great. So how has COVID-19 affected or disrupted or diverted your normal research?
Yeah, I think it's just maybe diverted a little bit, but still, I think for me, especially for my research, it's still in my core research actually. So because one of my research streams is about the understanding of human mobility patterns, from those various types of sensors. So as I said, including the GPS or mobile phones or maybe social media, right? Understanding the people's mobility, perception, their sense of place, right? Their emotions. So like I feel actually COVID-19 happens, the impact to the society, to neighborhoods, and to different types of people, actually, I think diversify my research a little bit, because now we need to also study such, pandemic impacts on human behaviors, including the human mobility patterns. So this is why I did a project. We launched a nationwide mobility tracker. So using the interactive, web mapping technology, and then flowing to those daily updated mobile phone data, and to track large-scale mobility patterns, across the U.S.
Okay. So are you contributing to some of those maps that we can see on Google that show the mobility and the different trends of the movement?
So not on Google, because Google products are contributed by Google engineers, but
okay.
We have different platforms. Yeah, our lab also has launched a website. Yeah, that keep tracking the mobility pattern, because different platforms use different data sources and different sampling rates and different coverage. Yeah, Google definitely has larger coverage than our lab, but we have different different indices.
Okay.
For instance, we provide different indices such as the stay-at-home time, the median diet value at each county, and then how that change over time, and also the travel distance and other indices that might be useful actually to inform on for example, the stay-at-home order adherence. So actually, we had one research published exactly about this, to understand the mobility patterns during the stay-at-home orders, and how the humans' behavior changed in terms of the mobility. Yeah.
Okay. So was this particular study part of the NSF grant that you got for COVID?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So we got a project is about, so I'm the PI, so it's about the geospatial modeling of COVID-19 spread and then the risk communication by utilizing the human mobility and social media data. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, that's perfect, because the next question, I'm just looking at my sheet, is what is the focus of your COVID-19 research? So.
Yes. Okay. That's the first part. Right now, after understanding the human, behavior changes, and also we had another co-PI. She's from life science communication, more about communication aspects, and she looked at how people, share their perceptions, especially about risks. So because this is why we see different, heterogeneity or different, responses or adherence in different states, in different countries, about their behavior changes. So, in other words, some countries, people really, follow the mandates. Some countries, they don't, as we already know from those media. So then, there is a lag effect about the potential growth of the infection if people actually didn't follow the mandates well.
What are the goals for your COVID-19 study? What are the things you want to accomplish?
So there are three things we list in the project. The first thing actually we will talk about is to understand the human mobility changes or other human behavior changes, right? This is understanding perspective. And secondly is we want to take this aspect into the mathematical modeling aspects. So this is why our title or the main goal is geospatial modeling, because to see or to track the virus spread definitely is cross geography and over time. So this is why it's the modeling aspects by taking account of those behavior changes. And then lastly, definitely because we are in Wisconsin, we have partnership, collaboration. We have actually very large groups on campus, and we have regular meetings with the state. So we have an opportunity to report some of our findings. So eventually, we hope that our research, although it's a fundamental research or more methodology research, maybe can inform some of the public health decisions. So actually, it's more like an iterative process, because in the first period, we're more focused on, we'll stay at home. And then in the business reporting, and then we're focused on testing capacity, testing frequency, right, other things. Now, we're back to our campus. So what is the impact when students from all the parts of the U.S. come back? Then it's another shuffling. So it's actually very complicated.
Yeah. You've mentioned human mobility, risk perception. So my next question is about the particular concepts or theories that are guiding your research. What are the particular concepts and theories that you're using?
Yes. So for this project or for my general research?
For this project, and if they're informed by what you're doing beyond, then just qualify that.
Yeah, so for this project, so definitely I'm also learning, because before this pandemic, yes, now I heard that all the scientists now have become epidemiologists. Pretend to be.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's actually a new area for me. So I need to actually read a lot of materials, and also by reading the latest references, also some classic book. But the integration of public health and geography or GIS specifically is not a new brand thing, because actually I have a book. I happen to actually have this book before. It's about mapping the disease, in the cartography or GIS things. So it's actually the classic motivation story about the study of GIS, because we want to find the spatial patterns, like spatial clustering patterns. So this is exactly, when we do spatial analysis, it's actually because one disease in London, they found a spatial clustering pattern from those whale and pipelines. So I think that in terms of theory part, I need to look at some of the epidemiology theory, especially about how the infection happens, and at what conditions, and what are the key parameters that we need to understand before we do the modeling. So this is from the epidemiology side. Second thing is definitely back into my core research on understanding of human behavior or human mobility specifically, and then that builds on our previous research on the understanding human mobility in different cities, like a different size of city, different shapes of city, because there are some underlying geographic theory or geographic principles. For instance, there is some this is well-known theory in geography that there is a term called first of all, spatial heterogeneity, to describe the heterogeneous distribution of the phenomenon. And the second thing is about we call the distance decay. So which means that the further or the longer the travel distance is, then the smaller of the spatial interaction is. So this is called the distance decay. But our previous research found that such a distance decay pattern actually is associated with the city morphology or the spatial structure. This is why when you do this kind of modeling, then you need to take previous understanding about how the mobility changes and how they reduce, and based on what type of spatial structure of in the cities. So I think that this actually connects all those dots together into one framework, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an example.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So you've really adapted some of what you've been doing previously and applying it into the COVID-specific research.
Yeah, on one hand applying, but on the other hand, maybe will enrich some of the existing studies, especially before we don't know how the urban scale mobility will change during those disruptive events. For instance, especially during the stay-at-home mandate, because some of those essential businesses are still open. So which means that some of the commuting flows still happening, but reduced to a certain level. But we don't know what is the changing structure, right, within the cities and different kinds of cities. Yeah.
Okay. Will you elaborate on the primary methods that you're using in this project?
I think I kind of elaborate a little bit, but after we understanding the mobility pattern, then the method is that we can incorporation of those mobility patterns and to encode those patterns into the parameters in the traditional compartment epidemiology models. So into those specific epidemiology models, like the well-known SIR or SEIR type of models.
Okay.
Yes, that's susceptible, exposed, infected, and removed. So SEIR model. Yeah, that is a classical type of infectious disease modeling framework.
Okay. Have you used all of these methods before, or are some of them new?
Most of them are new.
Okay.
Most of them new to me. Not new.
Yes. Sorry.
New to me. Yeah. To me. Yeah. New to me. Yeah.
From some of the work that you've been doing with your colleagues, what have your colleagues, as well as you, had to do in terms of adjustments to accommodate the research during the pandemic circumstances?
You mean for the COVID-19 or for the disaster project you mentioned earlier?
For COVID-19.
Okay. For COVID-19, I think that so for example we have four team members, four PIs and co-PIs in the team, and one of them actually is an expert in public health studies. So I think that he doesn't need to adjust much, but more like guide us. But for other three people, including myself, we are definitely new to this field. So for us, I think maybe is that what adopted, I think, is that maybe more focused on the domain problem rather than, for example, there is a mathematician, so if he or she doing, her previous research, she may not actually consider some of those aspects, for this project. But now she also needs to think about whether, the previous method that she, often use may work or may not, for this problem. So whether we need to develop new problems. So I think that definitely we are investigating and, to, sometimes, yes, to try to adopt a little bit, yeah.
Okay. If the question seems a little out of place, it's because we're also asking the same set of questions to researchers who do more anthropological kind of work, where they're actually going on site and interviewing people in person. So they've had to drastically change the way that they're carrying out their research because they actually can't go to those places.
Yes. Thanks for clarification. This is why I think that another project I mentioned, the NSF Coastal for People project, definitely that one affects more because previously we planned to do the field work, but right now we cannot do that because of the limitation, and also especially because of the increasing cases in Texas. Specifically, we actually cannot travel. So previously we planned to actually travel there to collect some field data, and then fusion the field data to our online pre-processed data to have a more better or more holistic understanding of the impact. But now we cannot do that. This is why we definitely need to change our plan.
So how are you adapting for that particular project in Texas?
So because we use our team members use UAVs, those unmanned aerial photos. So although it's a UAV, we still need people to control, right? To control the UAV. So but the original idea is that on one hand we collect UAV images, on the other hand we need to interview people about their perceptions and then their community reports But no, that part definitely right now is paused. Yeah, in terms of the interviewing part. Yeah. Yeah, that one was affected. Yeah.
For sure. So my next question is, so your COVID-19 research, what is the geographical boundary of the research?
Our focused area is in the U.S. Specifically. Yeah.
So all over the country.
Yes, actually, this is why I think that for geospatial modeling, especially as a geographer, we look at different scales. So we look at like state specific. We also look at the county specific modeling, like our in Wisconsin, like the Milwaukee County, or where the Madison is the Dane County, or maybe some southern California counties. But we also do the metropolitan area or the city-based scale, right? So to look at different sensor tracts, because that can, link into our previous study about those, like I said, communities or other patterns collected from the sensor pool or data. So for us, I think the project aim was actually for the multi-scale, geography.
Okay. And in the work that you'd done previously, apart from the Texas project, had you also worked at the national level, at the national scale?
My previous study, it's more in the cities. So in different cities, not in both U.S. in other cities, especially in Asian countries, because I was from China. Yeah, before I worked here. Yeah, that's why my previous research also had a lot of Chinese cities as a geography focus. And now, when I was a student in California, my study areas is more in Los Angeles because the closeness to Los Angeles. So I was in Santa Barbara. So that's why the study area is more in Santa Barbara and Los Angeles in terms of the cities.
Okay.
So, but now, yes, we have more accessibility to like to Chicago or to Milwaukee, and that's why in terms of cities, yeah, has some shifts. Yeah. Again, I think geography still plays a role in my research because of the various physical limits.
Mm-hmm. And it's also following up in an important way if you're able to meet with state officials, being based in Madison, close to the state capitol, where you can have an impact on policy.
Yes, that's the aim.
Yeah. What is the expected duration of your COVID-19 project?
So this is a rapid course. So it's usually about half a year to 1 year. So the expected is about within 1 year.
Do you foresee extending it for whatever reason?
We hope not to extend. That means that COVID-19 ended. But I think that the only hope right now is the vaccine. So that is all outside of our research. Yes. So we are more in the social science side of the understanding.
Very true. Very true. You had mentioned at earlier points in the interview that you're collaborating with a number of people, and that's how you got brought on board for the other disaster project and also for this COVID-19 project. Will you elaborate a little bit more on whether these were purely new collaborations, or had you been working with some of these people before?
Yes, for the first project, for the Coastal for People, the disaster project, I know the PI because we are in the same domain, and so this is why, and we share some expertise area. So this is why we get together. But for other people, actually one of them is we know each other from the conference. So like the annual, annual GIS conference or annual geography conference. But actually we have another two members. We are completely new to them. They're also new to us. So it's really based on what expertise we think our team needs, and research online, but within our campus, and research in our campus, and because the good thing is the University of Medicine is a large university. There are so many different departments, so really we can find out expertise area. Yeah, faculty also in that area in our campus. I think that's actually a very good thing for us. Yeah, this is for the first project. How we know each other and how we get together. The second thing is our second project for COVID-19. That is a similar strategy. Actually, I never collaborate with the three other co-PIs before, but I do know them about their expertise area because of different on-campus events. So I think that's actually a good thing about on-campus events. So even sometimes just for fun or for some Friday night the happy hour, but your campus colleagues and what they are doing. I think I much appreciate. Also, I as a person I very value this kind of social interaction on campus. Mm-hmm. So then when this thing happens, when the rapid core happens, and actually before that, because as I said, I'm from China, I know this is serious problem what's happening in the spread in China, and that's why I plan ahead in terms of we're already doing this research even before the NSF4, which means that I approved several blogs, and including one website, launched and also widely spread on campus. So actually people are knowing we are tracking the mobility pattern and how the spatial flow happening across the U.S. And this is why I think that really helps, because that blog I think it hits thousands of views and from different parts of the region. So I think that this is why I actually received several contacts when the core started. I need to decide which team I need to participate, because I know I can only participate one.
Wow. So the importance of physical presence has been very important in establishing your collaborations with your previous collaborators for the Texas project, from the on-campus events and networking. And was the the collaborator you met at the conference, was that at a virtual conference or an in-person conference?
In-person conference. In-person conference for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, not virtual.
Have you participated in any virtual conferences?
Yes, a lot, because we need to report our research progress. We also were invited by different groups and to present different aspects of the research. So yes, through those webinars. Okay. Yes, I participate a lot in the past months. Yeah.
Has Converge played any role in facilitating your research on COVID-19?
So, do you mean the methodology Converge or general convergence?
The Converge network, based out of the Natural Hazards Center at the University of Colorado Boulder.
I saw it. Yeah. So, as I said before, I was not an active, player in the disaster response. This is why, actually, I don't know that, that convergence thing. But yes, based on your email and also other introduction, now I know, and also we are, because I think we are in the list of this group. We also receives other relevant emails about different kind of disaster response effort, in coordination or convergence or other things, across the boundary. So I think that's really very, very good. I think recently we also saw another similar network called the urban disaster or something like that. It's from NSF. It's called the urban disaster. I forgot. There is one network.
Okay.
Focused on urban. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, urban disaster. Okay.
My other question about collaboration is that you'd mentioned you're meeting regularly with some of the state officials. Was that a collaboration that was in place prior to your COVID-19 research project?
Just one clarification. So for us, it's we report, we hold a regular meeting within our campus larger team, but I'm not the person to directly report to the officials.
Okay.
So there are other leaders on our campus to do that role. Yeah, not me.
Okay.
But I do have direct, yes, we do have, especially during I think in April and May, I remember, we do have a direct meeting with the state health officials, but that is only, several meetings, not like regular meeting. We only meet with the campus larger team,
Okay. What do you anticipate to be, or what are the primary challenges associated with conducting your COVID-19 research?
So I think as a new researcher in this field, I think definitely, I think the first challenge is we want to know what are the important things, like the public health decision makers need to know, because that can guide the modeling effort. So I think this is first thing we need to learn. I think I would also take as a challenge. Also a learning opportunity. The second thing is definitely to the access of the accurate data, because of various reasons we already see, like the testing capacity issue or the reporting delay or other things. So there is not a universal platform. We can just directly go to grab the data, post analysis. So we need a lot of cross validation, cleaning, and in terms of the data processing. So I feel actually that takes a lot of time. Yes, that's I think another challenge. And the third challenge, I think that I think this first two, I think it's more more important for to move our research forward.
So I'm moving into the last two questions. and they are a little bit more, well, they're different from the other ones. So the first is, much like everyone else, your day-to-day life is probably being affected by the pandemic. What are some of the changes to your personal life that are impacting your professional life and your research?
Yeah, that's a that's a good question. So for me, I think I can talk my personal experience first, and then maybe can elaborate a little bit based on what I observed. So I feel that definitely we need to learn how to do effective communication through those virtual platforms. So, for instance, I think I'm more good at doing our research group meeting in a physical environment. So now we need to hold the research group meeting online. Sometimes in Kindle, I don't know. I just have a different feeling compared with that in the physical setting. So I think that's something that I think we need to adapt, and also we need to maybe learn. I think that's what definitely have impact on our future academic thing, because if anything happens, some disruptive event happens, we have to come back to this mode again. So I think that that's something that I think will change.
Mm-hmm. So
I think that's something I can imagine.
Yeah. And how have you coped with having to switch your lab meetings from in person, where you have the reaction of the room and everything, to having to do your lab meetings over a screen?
So can you see the question again? What do you want to compare?
So the question is, how are you coping with these changes? So the changes of having to move your lab meetings in person to your lab meetings online.
So I think I still didn't get advantage of that, because for instance, in our in-person meeting setting, we have we have the screen, to present. We also have whiteboard to brainstorming, to elaborate ideas. I think I didn't do well in the virtual meeting. That kind of inspiration process, I think I lost. We can only ask, okay, please think, or please share, but it's not a platform to actually to share together, to I think to inspire each other. I feel maybe because of visual thing. I think it's something that maybe can improve.
Are there any other changes that you've had to make that are impacting your professional life and your research?
I think research side, I think we already talked a lot. I think maybe for the teaching side, I think the same thing. So we need to move to online education. In the we can say it's for another semester. So I think that's also definitely a huge challenge for our classes, especially for my class, involving those computer labs, and especially for especially for the programs that usually need to be installed in the university labs, right? Because the license and also the performance issue of the computers. Not every laptop has that good performance. That's why those are actually practical challenges. So that's actually also linking to my academic career or professional, development. So I think those are the real challenges actually we can see in the coming months. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned before that you took advantage of a lot of the on-campus opportunities to exchange with colleagues, to go to the happy hours. How are you dealing with the loss of those in-person activities?
Yes. So we actually try to maintain those virtual happy hour, but I think we failed. We still think there is no substitution for the in-person interaction. No. We give up the virtual happy hour. Not happy.
That's very true.
Yeah, in-person interaction is still very important.
So my last official question is, what have been the consequences, if any, of the demonstrations following the death of George Floyd on you and on your COVID-19 research?
So on COVID-19 research, I think is at that time we already see like the curve actually flattened in many places in the U.S. But after that, 2 or 3 weeks later, we see a resurgence of the pattern. So that's actually, I was very concerned actually during that event. Already concerned about the COVID-19 spread further. Yeah, but that exactly happened. So unfortunately, that's for the COVID-19 research. And for the event, for the event itself, I don't think I want to comment on that. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So I've got 2 more questions. The first is there anything you would like to add to any question or something that I haven't asked you that I should be asking you?
No, I think that's all. I think we have a very good conversation. Yeah.
All right. And the last question is, do you have any follow-up questions about the research?
Yes. I wonder, is this also a COVID-19 kind of research, or is the bigger project about the disaster convergence team?
So it's a working group that's funded by Converge, and the parameters of the research project are looking at the way that disaster researchers are approaching research during the COVID-19 period. So looking at how it relates to the previous disaster research that they've done, how they're adapting methodologies, theoretical concepts, study sites, and so collaborations, the way that they work, and so on, and how their personal circumstances are also driving their research too, or modifying it.
I see. Okay, yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
All right. So thank you very, very much for taking the time to answer all of the questions.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah.
And I will follow up with you in several months.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.